Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on Tuesday, the 4th of August. And in the news this morning, Stokes turned his arm over. We'll have updates from the A-League, the basketball, and also from the NRL, where Todd has turned down the Warriors. Also, we are seeing increased calls for an independent inquiry in gymnastics. And I will bring you up to date with that curling news as they had the men's and the women's national championships over the weekend. Kicking off with the football news, and last night, Central Coast Mariners beat Melbourne Victory 2-3 in the bottom of the table clash. That's not going to impact anything as far as the finals series go. Tonight sees Western Sydney Wanderers against Perth Glory. This Western Sydney Wanderers down in 8th, probably out of finals contention really. But Perth Glory up there in 5th, looking at closing the gap on Brisbane Roar. This is their game in hand over Brisbane Roar, but they're 4 points behind. So it will close the gap, but they can't quite catch them there. So that's the game this evening. On Wednesday night, the Phoenix are back in action against that the aforementioned Brisbane Roar. That'll be a tough game for them, being third against fourth in the table. If the Phoenix lose that, the Roar could overtake them. Yes, so the Phoenix came into this the post lockdown series with everything in their own hands. They could make it up into second. That has already slipped away with that loss to Melbourne City. Any further losses really would dent their finals hopes. Moving over into cricket, and Ben Stokes has given England a boost by turning his arm over in the nets. So yes, he's practiced some bowling. Tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, when the first test between England and Pakistan starts and goes from the 5th to the 9th of August. So Test cricket continues over there in England. Before that happens, there is tonight, New Zealand time, we have the third one-day international between England and Ireland. Yes, Ireland's Kevin O'Brien says his side's top order batsmen need to get runs on the board, and that is very, very true. The problem that Ireland have had so far is building up a defendable lead, having batted first in both of the one-day internationals so far. I'm going to hand you over now to Stephen, who is going to take us through our birthdays.
Good morning, Paul, and welcome to everybody tuning into New Zealand Sport Radio. In birthdays today, a Samoan and New Zealand Rugby League international, a rowing gold and silver medal Olympian, and finally a women's FIFA World Cup player at 2 World Cups, and that's where we start things this morning. Betsy Hesset, born this day, the 4th of August 1990, is a New Zealand footballer who plays for the New Zealand women's national football team and Icelandic club Stargman. She played previously for German side SC Sand, English club Manchester City, Amazon Grimstad in Norway, Werder Bremen in Germany's Froden Bundesliga, and Dutch club Ajax. Hassett represented New Zealand at the 2011 and 2015 Women's World Cup, as well as the 2012 and 2016 Summer Olympics. As a youth, she played at the 2008 and 2010 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup tournaments. Moving on, Juliet Hague, born this day, the 4th of August 1982, now with the married name Juliet Drysdale, but much better known under her maiden name, is a retired professional rower. Hague was in the New Zealand women's pair from 2004 to 2008 with Nikki Coles, then returned to the event after a year out and partnered Rebecca Scown in the boat. She won a gold medal in the Wheels pair at the World Rowing Cup Regatta in Lucerne in 2010. Hague and Scown won the bronze medal at the 2012 Summer Olympics in the same event. Hague officially announced her retirement from competitive rowing on the 2nd of December 2012. Hague is married to rowing Olympian Mahi Drysdale. And finally, Elsia Solialo, born this day, the 4th of August 1986, is a professional rugby league footballer who plays as a second row lock prop for the Canberra Raiders in the NRL. He played for New Zealand and Samoa at international level. He previously played as a centre for the Sydney Roosters in the National Rugby League and St Helens in the Super League, with whom he won the 2014 Super League Grand Final. And that's it. And our birthdays today, we'd like to wish those three recipients the very best of days. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that birthdays updates. And moving on to rugby news, and Steve Hansen, who was listed in the New Year's honours list, has been officially knighted by the Governor General, Dame Patsy Reddy. So he is now officially Sir Steve. He's had the sword touching his shoulders. So congratulations to Steve Hansen, who is now Sir Steve Hansen. Over in the NRL, and Todd Payton has revealed that he has turned down the Warriors for the head coaching position. He was interviewed last Monday. He was interviewed about 10 or 14 days ago, and last Monday, so just over a week ago, was offered the job. He turned it down for family reasons. His wife's dad, his father-in-law, has just started chemotherapy in Australia, and the travel backwards and forwards for his wife is obviously difficult in the COVID situation. He still has 12 months on his contract to go at the Warriors, and he is prepared to see that out. However, he is looking at the Cowboys head coaching role currently. So we'll have to see who comes in as the new head coach of the Warriors, whether they want Todd to be there and whether Todd gets offered that role at the Cowboys as well. Obviously disappointing for the Warriors that the person that they've had identified as a new head coach has turned them down after being interviewed. Over in the NBA, and lots of action going on there with 4 or 5 games every single day. The Spurs, Steve Adams team, obviously the Spurs, but one of the most ones interested in by Kiwis. They have a game at 8 a.m. this morning against the Grizzlies. And that is a key game for them, as currently they sit outside in 9th place, outside of the finals places in the Western Conference. And the Grizzlies currently sit in 8th. So this is a key game for the Spurs to win. And at this late point in the season, all of their games are going to be key. But clearly, this is one where they can deny the Memphis Grizzlies some points, as well as pick up or a win, and also pick up a win themselves. The top 7 in the Western Conference already have guaranteed themselves a playoff berth. So there's just one left, and that is currently between the Grizzlies, the Spurs, the Trailblazers, the Pelicans, the Kings, and the Suns. So yes, all tight there over in the Western Conference. Moving on to netball, and last night the Magic ended their losing streak and picked up their first win since the COVID lockdown, beating the Southern Steel 37-36. This is the Magic won their very first game of the season, but have been unable to win one since then. The Magic took the lead halfway through the first quarter and held on to that until just after half time, when the Steel took control and held on to a lead. Unfortunately for the Steel, they could only shoot 4 goals in the fourth quarter, and the Magic racked up 9 to get that 1-point win. So some great defense shown by the Magic in that fourth quarter to create get that big comeback win there. That'll do their morale an awful lot of good. They still sit last in the table, 1 point behind the Southern Steel, and further, 7 points behind the Northern Stars. So yes, the Magic aren't going to be worrying the finals, but hey, getting a win is always good for the team. Moving on to gymnastics now, and yesterday we talked about allegations about the culture of abuse in New Zealand gymnastics, and further allegations have come out since then. Apparently, in a 2018 training camp, a US coach was brought over to run an international training camp. There were complaints which ranged from verbal abuse through to dangerous training methods during that. Athletes that spoke out and complained apparently were then not given opportunities to qualify for the Olympics and were barred from various competitions after that. So yes, so sanctions. Athletes are saying that they got sanctioned if they complained about it. Gymnastics New Zealand had no independent complaints process in 2019, and that's amazing that you can get to that was until that early. It's taken until that date to get a complaints procedure in place. It's a standard. I would have thought it would be a standard kind of thing that all sports organisations would have. They have set up an email address which they're asking people to send through allegations and complaints, and they've said. And they said they have an independent process, or to go through to that. Unfortunately, the athletes do not trust where there's no transparency as to where those emails go, who gets to see them, what the process will be, and so the athletes obviously are very skeptical about that and worried about actually putting complaints through. The gymnastics season isn't talking, or ex-athletes are saying that, look, you need to talk to us, because current athletes clearly are having had previously seen current athletes get sanctioned. They are reticent about coming forwards because it obviously because they obviously believe it'll impact their Olympic hopes. Now, Grant Robinson, the Minister for Sport, has said that obviously deeply worried by this, and that Sport New Zealand is working with Gymnastics New Zealand on the next steps. You've got to say that a independent review of these allegations is really called for. We've seen similar things happen in Australia and the UK, and there's a documentary series about it in the US. So clearly, if you get the agencies overseas have acknowledged there are problems, are putting in independent inquiries to solve them. And if Gymnastics New Zealand have been bringing coaches in from those setups, you'd have to say they're probably going to bring their culture along with them. So yes, I'd say an independent inquiry is required, and also potentially, there's also calls for a clear out of the current administration, saying that basically faith in them has been lost, and that a new generation of administrators, judges, coach need to come through to improve the culture at Gymnastics New Zealand. We'll keep an eye on how things progress there. Moving on then to the Tuatara, New Zealand's baseball team, and they're having to look into, or they're looking at various options as to how they will be able to return to sport. Obviously, they take part in the Australian Baseball League and are the only team here in New Zealand. One option is to play all their home games at home and travel backwards and forwards, but that would really require a trans-Tasman travel bubble, and with the increase in cases, particularly in Melbourne and Victoria, you've got to say that is some months off from having that situation. The other option is to have teams potentially come to New Zealand and play. There are a couple of minor league teams out of the USA, plus also teams from Asia that are interested in coming down. So the Texas Rangers and the San Diego Padres are both looking at sending teams to New Zealand, for example, and the Taiwanese under-23 team would also like to come down as well. So that is a possibility of having a bubble or having a competition here in New Zealand. And then the final option is obviously to go over to Australia and play over there in the same way that the Warriors and the Phoenix have. Obviously, they would have to look at the financial side of that and whether it would be possible. New Zealand, the New Zealand government has already granted exemptions for various sporting events, such as the America's Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup, the Women's Football, not the Women's Football World Cup, sorry, the Women's Cricket World Cup as well. So it has been a precedent already set that exemptions can be granted for sporting events. Moving on to the golf and in the LPGA Drive On Championship, Ko finished in a tied 28th after having a really disappointing second round, which saw her drop down to tied 55th. So good for her to come back from that. And over in the PGA, Justin Thomas won the FedEx St. Jude Invitational, and in doing so climbed back to be number one in the world, climbing above John Ram and Roy McIlroy. So congratulations to him getting back up to there. As we said, the New Zealand National Championships in curling took place at the weekend. In the women's event, Bridget Becker's team won the gold there, winning all 6 of their games. Jessica Smith's team saw out Courtney Smith for the silver, so Courtney Smith took the bronze, and then Grace Puai Bishop came 4th in that event. Over on the men's side of things, and the Anthony Hood teams took gold with a 6-1 record, followed by Gary and Long, whose team took silver with a 5-2 record. Very close between them and Scott Becker's team, who took bronze, also with a 5-2 record there. So lots of action happening in the curling over the weekend, and congratulations to those 2 teams who took out gold. The Wendy Becker Sportsmanship Award went to Bridget Becker, Kenny Thompson, and Tom Pedre. So congratulations to them on their sportsmanship as well. You are now up to speed with all the important sports news. It's the best way to start the day here with New Zealand Sports Radio. We'll be back at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you'd like to listen to us on the go, the recordings are available on our podcast. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, or Acast. Have a wonderful day, everybody.